Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
So, Strixhaven is a Magic the Gathering set.
Oh, hell yeah, it is.
I have a card that I think is super duper awesome that I think some people might not be as awesome. I kind of want to start with it if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
It is a multicolored card. We used to call this Simic, but it
It's still Simic. It's kind of like Simic is the color combination. The school gives you something to do it in contrast with, some Quandrix.
yeah. So this one is called Body of Research. It's a sorcery for GGG UUU Mythic Sorcery. Create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your library. Body of Research. The ultimate in Baneslayer Angels.
That's not the ultimate in Baneslayer Angels. That's merely, it's like a 45-45. Whatever. How is that the ultimate? You mean just like the biggest?
Yeah, it's like the biggest.
Because, I think, I don't know, call me old-fashioned, but I would take a -10 to get some trample up in this. But no, I mean, this is a cool card, but why is this good at all?
Okay,
Isn't
so
this not good at all?
two things. One,
Okay,
I mean, actually, I'll just cut to the end, okay?
sure.
Fling is legal and standard. I mean,
So?
people want to put together... This is a Splinter Twin, man. 8 mana, they're dead. They're dead to death. Take 40.
Sort of. No, I mean, not if they have like a counterspell or something.
Yeah, but that's true of any 2-card combination.
No, but, they're not just dead to dead. But regardless, okay, so, yeah, it can be a kill card. Like,
Yeah.
It can be part of a combo to win if you get GGG, 1 in a red, or 2 in a red if you're using the double face card.
It is super... I mean, yes, you're saying that in a, kind of a side-eye way, but it's super not difficult to put that together with the tools we have in Standard. It's like you can play one mountain in your deck. It's super fine.
I know, I agree with that. I just mean that there's so much of it. 8 or 9 mana?
Yeah, but there's also...
for 7, you can play ultimatums.
Yeah, but this just kills them. But here's the other thing.
Unlike an ultimatum?
An ultimatum does mess you up good, but you usually play 2 or 3 more turns after you get ultimatumed.
The ultimatum only costs 7. 2 turns later, you got enough. You got 9 mana. Besides, it's 1 card. I'm not saying it's a 0, man. I'm just saying that, I don't know, man. It's also very interactable.
It is if you don't kill them that turn. I agree.
Unless, no. Or if you try to kill them that turn. At the end of the day, you still have to resolve both spells and all the mana and do all the things, It depends on what kind of interaction there is for back. Maybe it's fine. It's just that I guess the burden of proof, for ultimatum mana and then some, you got to get a lot. So, yeah, I'll give you that dealing 36 damage is kind of a lot, but it is pretty sweet that it can get randomly hosed by rogues.
Okay, so here's some thoughts that I have. One, you inspired me, man. So I logged my Arena account back in after it collected a little dust. So I've been playing not a lot for an Arena grinder, but probably a lot for a Muggle civilian. So I've been playing a lot of Best of One because I have to build my collection back up. I play against an ultimatum deck 40% of the time, maybe 45% of the time, approaching 50%. I don't feel like that deck. If you're just playing an aggro deck, you win most of the time. They just literally just don't kill you, even if they ultimatum a lot of the time. I don't think that would be the experience playing against this card. You could just get one accelerator and play this a turn early. The one of the other cards that I really love is the inspiration that's also a rampant growth. That's a great 4 into 6, and all of the green accelerators, like the Land of War Visionary type stuff, Wolf Willow Havens, etc., work so well here, and like in a way that like you could just play this fair game of Magic that a lot of decks can't beat. I think like your fair game would be good against red. Your fair game would be great against white. Like that's the way I'd look at it as a baseline, and then you also have this combo kill. Like an ultimatum deck could just like do their thing. You're like, all right, that stinks. I'm going to give you whatever split that doesn't include giving you a time walk. Are you done? All right, I'm going to draw some cards end of turn. Untap. I will kill you now. You have 2 awesome permanents in play. You're dead. I don't know. Like they can't play their A game.
I'm not saying it's nothing. Let's see more of the set then, because let's talk about some more of the set then, so we can contextualize this 8 mana 2 card, 8 mana in 1 turn 2 card combo kill. That's pretty reliable. It's not. It's far from like ironclad, but it's pretty high on the list of they're dead.
Yeah, so one of the things you taught me, I don't know, a long time ago, is that like 3-card combinations and 2-card combinations have like a very fundamental difference, which is that 2-card combinations often have one of the 2 cards is like unplayable. Maybe both of the cards are unplayable. In the abstract, they're just good together. I think the fact that Body of Research is at least like a solid B. If
no,
not
it's not.
You don't think it's a B?
No.
You think it's like a C plus?
No, not in a combo ramp deck. No, it's 100 for 6. But it's not even 100. It's barely
it's
a 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on how it goes, maybe it's a 60.
So, but like I don't know. It's a card that has some text, and the Fling is a card that has some text also. They're like neither one of these is a Nomad's Encore, right? Like it's just not anyone's a Shuko. Like these are like cards.
Nomad Encore is like a dude who can like hold the ground. Man, I think you're underestimating Nomad Encore or overestimating the utility of Fling on the backup plan.
I have played more Nomad's Encore than you. I think
I've played more Flings than you.
Okay,
but all right, man. All right, let's contextualize this with some of the other cards in the set, because that's a very powerful interaction, and I think you're right that it probably deserves a little bit more credit than it's getting.
So, a card that I was talking about a second ago is Eureka Moment, which is 2, a G, and a U for an instant. Draw 2 cards. Classic inspiration cost for a classic inspiration effect. But then you also may put a card from your hand onto the battlefield. I like this one a lot.
Not just a card, a land.
A land, yeah, a land.
You like this card a lot?
I like it a lot, yeah.
I don't. Are you kidding? I'm not trying to... Okay.
No, I like it.
Maybe, you think this card's good?
I think this card is playable, yeah. I think I will play this card. How about that? Yes.
I don't know, man. This card looks... not that good. Like, I don't know. Isn't it just kind of like... it's kind of like Cultivate, but you get to spend 4 instead of 3?
Instant speed? I think that... So, like, one of the main Cultivate decks in Standard right now is also a Saw It Coming deck. So, I think that the fact that you're not just tapping out for it is a potential advantage. I also imagine playing Saw It Coming, Cultivate, and Eureka Moment all in the same deck. So, there is that possibility.
Huh. Well,
are you like not a fan of just like the forecasting cost draw 2 archetype?
What is the forecasting cost draw 2 archetype?
Like just like the archetype of Magic the Gathering card starting with Inspiration. Like I just straight up played Inspiration. I always thought it was fine. I like that card.
No, I've never been a guy who plays Inspiration. I was a guy who plays Impulse, not a guy who plays Inspiration.
I think that I might have played Impulse and Inspiration at the same time.
You got to find the Inspiration somehow. Yeah, maybe dude, I don't know. Am I just missing something, or is this just like not close to close? I don't know. It's fine. I guess it's fine if they didn't like incredibly increase the power level of the cards.
I
They're
don't
the
know.
cards that you like, man.
I
Okay,
guess we'll
no,
see.
I mean it's
I
fine.
think
I
this
guess
card's
it's an
good.
attractive card for, if we set aside the rate, it's like it does some stuff that you kind of like. It's like Growth Spiral, but you draw a card for 2 extra mana. It's kind of like, how like Watch Wolf is like a pretty good 2-drop,
Yeah, but no one would play it really.
but like you can just get it for 4 and draw a card, which is another card that you were really excited for in recently because of just how good it compares to historical precedents. Except that's not really the way that cards are costed these days, man.
I
I
don't know. I think this one's gonna see some legs.
The draw 2?
Yeah.
I think people will play it early in the season. Okay. If these cards are just like what's doing it for you, what do you think of Shadrick's Silver Quill? 3 white black for a 2/5 flying double strike at the beginning of combat on your turn. That's an interesting time to trigger. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player. Target player creates a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Target player draws a card and loses a life. Target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control.
So I may choose 2. So does that mean I have to choose 2 or I can choose 0? Is that what that's saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting fork. I thought when I originally saw this card, I'm like, oh, I would just choose 1 then, and I would choose
They
whichever
always say
one.
up to 2.
Yeah, but this one doesn't. This one says you may choose 2. So on offense, this is basically a 4/5, right? Due to the double strike, unless there's a boost of some sort.
A little better.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Particularly with its self-pumping ability.
It doesn't have haste, right? So yeah, target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. Shadrick's Silver Quill is one of the creatures you control, and this could potentially trigger before you attack, right? Because this doesn't have haste itself, right? So, I don't know. I think this card is like I'm not. I wanted to be more Gaga over all the dragons, and I wasn't that Gaga over any of them. I think this card's fine. Is that funny to you? Like I think those other 2 cards are Bonzer, and then you probably think this card's much better than I do.
No. This is the test. I wanted to see if this was where you were going to suddenly just. No, I think this card's sweet. I don't think that this is necessarily dominant, because here's the way I kind of think about it. If we had a 2/5 flying double strike, to me, that's better than a 4/5 flyer, but it's not by that much, right? And then, particularly in white and black, unless there's like a bunch of tactical reasons of how you're getting pumps for free and all that. But in general, it's a little bit better than a 4/5 flyer, but you got to actually be doing something. Beyond that, this doesn't do anything unless you trigger the ability. If you trigger the ability, it has virtual haste. If you trigger the ability, let's imagine you were getting a card worth of value out of this operation. What would you think of a 2/5 flying double strike, or a 4/5 flyer that draws a card every turn, including the turn you play it?
Oh, every turn, including the turn that you play it for 5?
Yeah, but just your turn. And you have to
Okay.
make it to combat. At the beginning of combat, you
All
can
right, so
draw a card.
let me just make sure I got this right. It costs 5.
Yep.
I get a 4/5 flyer.
Yep.
Draw a card immediately.
At the beginning of combat on your
All
turn.
right, immediately-ish. Like
Yep.
also if I play this
Pretty immediately.
if I play this post combat, which you often do that kind of stuff, tactically, right? I might not get that card in that case. I would be enthusiastic to play that card, except there's an asterisk on this. There are a lot of more synergistic, better flyers in the 4-power range in white and black right now, just in particular because of Kaldheim. So I'd actually have to think twice about it, because there are a lot of ways to get like the equivalent of one bonus card.
I think that analysis is extremely spot on, because from my perspective, this card's pretty good, but it's playing in a pretty tough weight class, and there's a lot of things that are pretty good. And that's all assuming that we just hand wave this operation and say it's worth a card. Because when you actually try to puzzle together the options, it's not like that's inherently a card at all, right? Because if like all these modes are arguably worth a card, right? So like
Yeah,
if
but
you
if they're
just
worth a card to you, maybe they're worth a card to them, right?
exactly, and that's the problem is that you got to finesse it. You get the best of three, and your opponent gets your choice of the worst of three when you do it. But to the best of three, the amount that the best of three is better than the worst of these three is not always a card. I mean, so obviously when your opponent has no creatures, it's a cakewalk. You can either get a 2/1 flyer or you draw a card and lose a life. To me, even though drawing a card and losing a life is worse than drawing a card, if I have a choice between draw a card and lose a life or get a 2/1 flyer, that's probably worth at least a card, right? I'd gladly pay the life when I draw the card so that I have the option of getting a 2/1 for sure with flying on the battlefield for 0 mana. So
Yeah,
when
a
your
2/1
opponent has
flyer for like no mana is probably worth a card, right? But it's not a very good card.
no, but it's fine. Tactically, though, it's a valuable option, particularly when you know that you can anthem your team on the next turn.
Yeah.
So I think that when your opponent doesn't have a creature, you're at least getting your cards worth of money, but it's not like you're that far ahead. When your opponent has creatures, though, I mean, so obviously if they just have like one creature, frequently a single +1/+1 counter, still not worth as much as either of these modes. However, we're starting to get to the space where it's not clear you're getting a full card worth of value. And heaven forbid your opponent has multiple creatures where you're like, well, I can't just +1/+1 counter their team. Then we got to get into a couple things. One, what if you just have ways to kill 2/1 flyers very easily? That I think is actually at the heart of some I think that a deck that uses this card well is going to be able to kill 2/1 flyers incidentally very easily.
Like you had some sort of like Knight of Souls Betrayal or something like that.
Or something, some kind of way to take advantage of it. You know, like Forbidden Orchard turn the drawback into upside. I think that there's going to be ways to do that, and that's going to be at the heart of making this card really tick. The second part, obviously, you can just get your opponent you give them a card every turn, but you get to do you make them lose an extra life. So you actually can kind of put them on a pretty fast clock that way.
Yeah, I was thinking making them draw might be good, but making them draw is also never good.
Well, it is when they're at 1.
Yeah, the cases are rare. I remember we were playing a set that you had built years and years ago, and I kept trying to make you draw, and it never helped me. It never helped me at all.
But yeah, I think that your analysis is spot on. It's a sweet card. There's a lot of competition at this spot on the curve. What about the blue-red one, though? Galazeth Prismari, 3/4 flyer. I mean, now that you've seen the whole set, what do you think of this guy in context? 3/4 flying. When he enters the battlefield, you get a treasure, and artifacts you control have tapped to add a mana of any color. And this mana may only be used to cast instant or sorcery spells.
Relative to the other kind of Strixhaven schoolmasters or whatever, I like this one just because its casting cost is so much lower than all the other dragons, so that was one of the things that gave me a kind of a double take on it. 3/4 flyer for 4, in 2021, nobody is writing home for that body, right? Like that's just not like how many 4/4 flyers for 4 just don't get played.
Well, but hold on though, hold on. Would you play a 3/4 flyer, no drawback?
For 4?
For 3.
Yeah.
Sorry, a 3 cost 3/4 flyer. You would, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what about a 3/4 flyer that just gives you a mana like a mana rock, a manolith? Because that's even though a 4 cost 3/4 that gave you 1 mana this turn would be worse than a 3 cost 3/4 flyer. A 4 cost 3/4 flyer that gives you a permanent mana source is definitely better.
But this isn't a permanent mana source, except
yes,
kind of.
It is, as long as you have this guy. And then even if they get rid of this guy, you still get 1 for the road.
Yeah, you get the treasure. So I think that you gotta want this guy in a deck that has like a bunch of artifacts. Like that's just cut to the chase on that one. If you've got like a bunch of artifacts, then
Tokens, man.
You get a bunch of extra mana potentially, but it's only mana that you can spend on particular types of spells.
Man of any color, play your ultimatums, dude.
So you think Galazeth Prismari is just like a cultivate that can block? Like,
nope.
It's not.
Nope.
No, but those ultimatum decks don't even have enough artifacts that you could just.
This is the beginning of a new deck.
Yeah.
This guy, no, I'm not even. This is a real deal. I'm telling you, this guy's going to be good.
I think that the effect is potentially very abusable. That's where I would have gotten, but I was like thinking like, all right, do we play this in like affinity type builds? And I was like, no, it's too expensive.
Nah, okay, so here you go. You play it with Magma Opus. They kind of put it together for you. Magma Opus is 6 blue-red for an instant. It deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. Tap 2 target permanents. Create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token and draw 2 cards. Plus, it has a special cycling ability of just is it, and you discard this card to create a treasure token.
So they have a lot of these cards in Prismari that have that sort of discard this card, which is, I guess, a kind of an uncounterable ability to make a treasure. I mean, I would be sad if I were making a lot of treasures this way, but, I looked at this and I'm like, is this the ultimatum of the set? This is, it's ultimatum-ish.
Definitely. I mean, it's 8 mana, but it's an easy 8 mana, and it's an instant. And for you get a pyrokinesis, but a pyrotechnics. I mean, you can hit creatures, players, planeswalkers, whatever you want, right? At instant speed. And then you also get to tap 2 permanents, which can include land, of course, but it can also be a bunch of stop some attackers. You get to create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature. That's a big game right there. And then draw 2 cards. Okay, can we agree that instant speed deal for if you could play for 4 mana, an instant speed deal 4 that's divided as you choose among any number of targets, at least it's in the ballpark of being able to be considered, right?
I don't think so. Not at all.
You don't think?
Nah.
You don't think it would be considered?
Okay. So I don't play Slaying Fire, which is still legal in Standard. And
yeah, but divided.
I don't know. It just seems like that's a high threshold at 4.
Okay. How about this? You play 4 mana, draw 2 if it has even the lightest upside, right?
Oh yeah. I'll do that. But I get 2 of those for this cost.
Okay, so can we agree that 4 mana draw 2 is kind of mediocre? And
no,
you want something else, right?
It's mediocre plus.
Okay, how about this? Create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. Is that worth 3 mana at instant speed? I think at 3 mana instant speed, that's a really good deal.
I mean,
I think at 4 mana, it's not that good.
So it's funny that you say that. Neither blue nor red has a whole lot of 4/4 like fair creatures that you can get at 3 or 4 mana, right? Like, so usually the ones at 4 mana are more powerful than a 4/4, but like you have to jump through sufficient hoops, like paying 4 mana for them, that no one plays them, and like either color would jump at the chance to play a 4/4 for 3 mana. Like red has like in not that distant past played all kinds of terrible 4/4s that can't block, etc. at 3 mana just because it was a good deal for red.
So what do you think is better? In general, dealing like a instant speed forked bolt, deal 2 damage divided how you want, or a card.
At what cost?
None. Just 0. In general, is a card worth more or less than dealing 2 damage divided how you want?
Instant speed fork bolt is better than drawing 1 card for 0 mana.
Right. So what about 2 instant speed fork bolts or drawing 2 cards?
I see what you're trying to do here.
Okay.
I saw it the first time, just to be clear.
Okay. So what about a 4/4 for actually, let's just tap 2 target permanents. How much is it tap 2 target permanents worth?
White and 1.
Would you really do it?
No, but my good friend and yours did to win a Pro Tour a few years ago.
Okay, so uh, you're gonna have to just trust me on the math. But two four-cost cards stapled together are you can argue a case for them at 6, and if they were mediocre cards at 4, they can be made into a good card at 5. If you're talking though about a deal 4 divided how you choose and draw 2 cards, that's like clearly a draw 4, right?
So,
And then a 4/4, that's worth 2 more cards, so that's a draw 6. And then tap 2 target permanents. I'll give you a card for that. So is this about?
I mean, really, is it worth? When Hayne did it, he had to write article after article explaining why it was good.
No, it's worth it. I think that once you're doing all this other stuff, yeah, I give up one of my 7 cards in order to tap 2 permanents.
All right.
The tactical advantages, dude. Seriously, tempo, man. So this is kind of a draw 7 for 8 mana, which admittedly is a lot.
Oh my god!
But it
You have the
cycles
most
for a treasure token, man.
staples and duct tape draw 7 I have ever. This is kind of worth a card. No, this will call this a card. If you said to me this card was blue, red, so like twice as hard to cast for half the mana, and it said Forked Bolt, draw 1, make a 2/2, tap 1 card, I still don't know if I'd be in. I think I'd be in for that card.
Okay, so you know how like Cruel Ultimatum is obviously a draw 11?
I mean, I don't know if it's draw 11, but I've not lost a lot of games that I've cast that card.
Yeah,
I think I lost one my entire time playing that card.
This card is a draw 7, much the same way that Cruel Ultimatum is a draw 11.
Yeah, but I feel like no one ever came back from Cruel Ultimatum. I can see coming back from this. Like, I got hit for 4 and you tapped
it also
my
cycles.
Lands. Oh, no.
Dude, Cruel Ultimatum cycled.
Why would you want to cycle it? Then you might accidentally not make them discard their hand and draw a million cards and make them take a bunch of damage.
All right, dude.
Whatever else that card did.
What about Decisive Denial? Blue-green, instant. Choose... I don't know. We already talked about this one, but now that you can see... Does this fit into your vision of the Simic here? Of the Quandrix, I guess?
Yeah, so Decisive Denial, which is like... Either it's a fight card or a counter... like a negate slap to
mana
a
leak,
mana leak, sort of.
Yeah, a Spell Pierce. Well, it's like a mana leak, but for non-creatures only.
I think this card's great.
Seems pretty good. It's like a nuts and bolts card.
Like if you just like I played like the card Quash in my Simic Flash deck when I played that a couple years ago. I think I played like 2 Quash or something. I think if I just had the option, I'd just play Decisive Denial in that spot, right? Like
sure.
If you're like you could counter a creature after it resolves, it's actually arguably better. And you can just still negate things, except for it's a better negate against negate targets. I think I'd just be in, and I was happy. I mean, it's not to say that I was happy to play Quash, but I played Quash, and it was good for me.
Yeah, I think the card's good, but I think it is a little overrated just because of how obvious it is in application. But it seems like it's a good card.
Like, I don't think you probably play 4. I think maybe you play like 2, and you never sideboard it. Like it's
a main sideboard
card.
No, it's a very weird sideboard. What do you think of Humiliate though, man? White-black sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card and they discard it. So it's like a thought erasure, except instead of getting instead of getting to actually just do that little bit of library manipulation, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control.
So when I saw this card, I was just like, I think I need to see how this. I was going to say tribe, right? But like this school plays, like when they play their cards together, because I feel like this card is very flavorful, like stories wise flavorful, and maybe it's mechanically good if you have like a lot of those cards together. But in the abstract, just like on rate, just like this does not compare to a Thought Erasure to me, right? Like I look at Thought Erasure, I'm like, Thought Eraser's awesome, right? And I look at this and I'm like, I'm gonna get the upside on this. How often? Like I played a lot of Duress in my time, like a lot, like since when you could first play Duress, and I think that the number of times I needed a creature in play when I cast Duress was probably less than 50% of the time.
I think this card's good. It's going to be, you got to, I mean, it's, here's another way to think of it. You play Distress, right?
Distress, is that the BB
BB,
one?
this
Yeah.
BB, but no counter.
So
at the end
I
of the
have
day,
played Distress.
It's not that you're happy with Distress, but it's not the worst floor, right?
Now that you mentioned it, I think I've played Distress and Duress in the same deck before.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, man, I think you're going to be surprised at how much easier to cast Distress is already attractive, and that counter can have some value at times, particularly the more Magecraft you might be trying to utilize.
I think, like I was saying, if you've got, I think like if these cards are played on the teams that they're supposed to be played together, like there might totally be something going on here that I don't see on first blush. Like, oh, you just kind of stuff kind of a lot, right? Like you're gaining Magecraft, you're gaining +1/+1 counters. Your stuff is like all about combat. Like,
dude, I don't think you have to be making it. You don't have to sew it all together. Can't you just sometimes get a counter, sometimes not? And when you do, it's a little extra material.
Sure. But I mean, like, look at just a Silver Quill Silencer is a card that, like, my head goes to when we're talking about Humiliate, right? So Silver Quill Silencer is white-black for a 3/2, right? And it has the ability, when Silver Quill Silencer enters the battlefield, choose a non-land card name. When an opponent casts a spell with the chosen name, they lose 3 life and you draw a card. So it's like a terrible Meddling Mage that has a different weird upside. But part of its kit is that it has 50% more power. Right? Like, so what is this take of a Meddling Mage in this color combination, play like when you're like in the situations where you would want a Meddling Mage? I think that a Humiliate is a really cool teammate to a Silver Quill Silencer. In a way that it wouldn't have been, playable is the wrong word, right? Like, maybe wouldn't have been a card of choice with a classic Meddling Mage.
Okay. I don't know how big of a difference that's going to end up making, but they do work well together.
No, like this card is clearly, if you want to break up a combo, this is way worse than Meddling Mage, right? It gives them an out. But, like, is it disruptive? Yeah, it's a little disruptive. It gives you giving you a card is awesome, right? Dealing damage to them, that's kind of a lot of damage for 0 additional mana, right? Like, depending on which card you name, it could be a big deal. And, like, imagine you're playing this in a blue deck, right? Like, you can make them, like, you can name the card that gets, that they have to cast for whatever their sequence is, and then counter it, right? And you still get the upsides. So I think, like, I think this card's probably pretty playable. Might even be quite good. Maybe you play it with Meddling Mage in bigger formats. I don't know.
So what about Expressive Iteration, man? Blue-red sorcery. Please tell me you cracked the code in this card. Blue-red sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them in your hand, and put one on the bottom of your library and exile one of them. You may play the exiled card this turn.
A wise man once said to me, sometimes WotC makes card draw and library manipulation that's too good, and it's just our job to play it. That wise man was Patrick Chapin.
So you think this card's broken?
I think this card's fantastic. I think that there's 2 things about this card that I would note, and once I say it, everyone's going to know the play pattern. You just don't cast it on turn 2 if you can help it. Sometimes you can't help it.
Wow, do you want to play this on 3?
Yeah, 4? Wow, is this card good on after turn 2. On turn 2, sometimes, like, you look at your hand and you don't have a land drop, you still might not cast it on turn 2, right? But, like, there's going to be games you have to, like, if you think you're going to meet a tight clock because your opponent's playing a combo deck or something, then fine, cast it on turn 2. But if you can not help casting it on turn 2, wait until turn 3, you will be very happy.
I bet this card's vintage playable. And in vintage, you can actually play it on turn 2.
Oh, because of cheating. Right?
Well, like cards that cost 0.
Yeah, you could just mox it out on turn 2 and then... So the reason that we're saying that is because one of the zones is being able to play that card this turn. If you play it on turn 2, you can't exile a land and play it immediately unless there's something else going on.
But one of the nice things about this card is the fact that you can exile a land, which is going to be the case so often that I actually kind of think it makes the card less cool of a design. But, yeah, this card is like better than draw 2, and it only costs 2 mana. The reason I say it's better than draw 2 is that even though you have to, time it a little bit right, you're getting 2 out of the top 3, man. This card is like, I don't know, this card seems like unbelievable. This card seems like as good as Growth Spiral.
That is a high bar. It doesn't break the symmetry that Growth Spiral does, and it is a sorcery instead of an instant. That said, I agree this card is very good.
It doesn't break the symmetry. It's not the same card. It breaks a different symmetry. It gives you 2 cards for 2 mana.
That is true.
Selection.
I guess there are only 2 symmetries, and it just breaks the other one. Okay.
Dude, this card is going to be good in Legacy. I think this card is vintage playable. Maybe. I don't know. But I think this card is going to be good in Legacy.
Wait, but you don't think Growth Spiral is playable in Vintage, do you?
No, not really. I mean, I guess in theory it's not a 0%, but it's pretty close to 0.
But people just don't play enough lands, right?
Yeah, that's just not what it's about. It's not like it's not priced right. It's just that's not what it's about. You would play Growth Spiral in Legacy if that was what it was about. It's just that there's just mana bond and stuff, and even Growth Spiral's not a 0 there. But no, I think this card's what it's about, and I think this card is going to be unreal. This card is a little bit weird.
I think this card's... It's not weird. It's just I think it's a cool design.
Yeah, I do think... Yeah, I'll have to see how it plays, but man, I hope that I don't just put a land into my exile every time.
I think you will. That's what I was planning to do. You get 3 looks, man.
I know. It just seems like that would get old. I just wish that... I don't know. It just seems like you want to... mix it up a little bit. We'll see. I want to play with it, but man, I was already, it's not like the Prismari, getting to have that pretty sick Prismari command was already really compelling. I could just play with Prismari command and Expressive Iteration.
Oh my gosh. You know what's the worst? Like, because you don't play this on turn 2, like, you just like Bone Crusher Giant them with the Stomp on turn 2. And then you just like Expressive Iteration, and then play like a Red Source Go, and then you Shocker, or Frostbite their next thing, and then you start playing your real cards. You're like, for the first 2 or 3 turns, all I did was humiliate you. Right now, it's time to play the cards that are going to express the blue half of my deck. This is going to be fun for you, for the Expressive Iteration person. This is. You could just easily build an Expressive Iteration type deck with just like attrition-y red removal, and you would be so ahead of the game in a lot of matchups.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do if you just get to play with 2 mana draw 2 with selection. What do you think of the rest of their action, though? Actually, here's one for you. Crackle with Power. The XXX red. Crackle with Power deals 5 times X damage to each of X targets. So you can pay 5 mana to deal 5 damage to 1 target, or you can pay 8 mana to deal 10 damage to 2 targets.
Up to 2 targets.
Right, yeah.
You pay 11 mana.
Yeah, 11 mana gets you in for 15 damage to 3 targets. And then you got to go all the way up to 14 mana to get your 20 damage to 4 targets. So up to 4 targets.
I could totally see for playing this card, right? I was thinking about it priced at 5, right? Which is XXX is 111, which is 3 plus 2. You can, 5 for 5 is slightly ahead of the curve in terms of...
I don't know, man. You're thinking... You might be thinking of a decade ago.
Strictly in terms of fireballs, right? I don't know. Like, when there was last physical Grand Prix, I played Banefire. Or whatever card there was. Like, I think like there were a lot of decks in the era of Experimental Frenzy that played RX to deal X. You know, I think that it is not in the unplayable zone yet. I guess that makes it was uncounterable. That's why we played it, right? You just use that to beat control decks. But I don't know. I think that the 5-on-5 is, you know, I'm not writing home about it, but it's okay. But I don't know. I think it's the primary way you would play it. I don't think you're very likely to get the bigger versions, but it's cool if you do. What do you think? I mean, do you think you just ramp and then you're like, all right, I'm going to 10 somebody with this?
I don't know, man. I don't know that I believe that. I mean, there's a little bit of power here, but I don't know that I believe that this is what it's about either.
I don't know. It has high amounts of mana. It has really disproportionate returns, though. But I mean, I guess, you know, I'm the same kind of person, just like, well, what do you expect you get for 7 mana? And so,
yeah, I mean, I like the 14 mana the version the best, and then the 5 mana version, and then the 8 mana version with the 11 mana version bringing up the rear. But still important.
You like the 14 mana version the best?
Dude, I want to kill people, man.
I got a 2-card combination that starts with GGGUU for you.
I want to do it with one less card.
But a lot more mana, apparently.
Yeah, but presumably I just got it like that, or else I wouldn't be doing this kind of stuff.
You had to have used a lot of cards to get to that mana, my friend.
Maybe I just have it incidentally. I don't know. What about Paulo's card, the 3/1 flyer? So yeah,
I wanted to be into it. I'm not that into it.
No? So it's Elite Spellbinder. It's 2 and a white for a 3/1 flyer, human cleric, good types. When Elite Spellbinder enters the battlefield, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. It spellcast this way, costs 2 more to cast.
All right, let's break this one down. It obviously invites comparison to Vendilion Click, right?
Sure.
Now, it is a card that is legal, unlike Vendilion Click, so there's that. 3/1 flyer for 3 in white. Let's start there. That's okay-ish, right?
It's not the worst. It's not great, but it's an efficient distribution at least.
It's not the worst, right? I can see for playing it if I love the ability. You know, it can get your beat down on. The ability is somewhat disruptive. I don't know how to put this.
Isn't this quite disruptive?
It's like not even a whole card worth of disruptive.
But you got selection, man.
Yeah, it does something, kind of. Right, like, if you could, like, let's
Not kind of.
All right.
Dude, you're getting a dark ritual out of it.
All right, let's compare it to this. What if there was a card? So this costs 1 colored mana and 2 colorless mana for 4 total power and toughness, and 2 abilities, one of which is kind of a proxy for drawing a card, right? Or just denying a card. But not quite, right? It's
sort
less.
of. It's tempo.
Ish. Like, they could
No,
still
it's all tempo.
They can
That's
do
what
other
it is.
things.
I know, but they can't do that thing unless they pay 2 extra mana.
So, like, where would you rate a Llanowar Visionary? Where would you rate that card? Would you say that card is an A, a B plus?
No,
like,
I don't use such things. Gentlemen use the binary system.
Okay, so it's a 1. Okay.
Like this card.
This card is
right
not
content.
as good as Llanowar Visionary. It's like not even close to as good as Llanowar Visionary. Like, Llanowar Visionary is a whole card instead of kind of a card, right? And it is a whole Black Lotus instead of kind of a Black Lotus.
About this. What about a 3/1 flyer that blinks something when you play it? People play that in powered formats, right?
Not me.
Yeah, but people do.
Yes, they do. They
And
wisp
blinking
the
a thing on your creatures enters the battlefield ability it's not entirely dissimilar to this ability.
Like, they do that because they're... I mean, I guess you could make similar arguments with something like an Aether Vial, right? But one of the reasons Flicker Wisp is good is because it's basically an instant speed sort of removal-ish, disruptive-ish sort of thing in situations where somebody might kill you, right? Like, this is not going to do that.
Okay, you're being crazy here. What about how do you feel about a 2-1 flyer for 2?
2-1 flyer for 2. I could be in.
You like that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I could be in.
Okay. What about a 2-1 flyer for 2 that lets you look at their hand?
Like once?
Yeah, how often do you need? You were going to do it with a drawback. This is at least upside.
Yeah, I'd do it, yeah.
Right, of course. Now, what if you even got to increase the cost of one of their cards by 1?
I said I could see this card being a 1 instead of a 0. I'm just not that into it.
Dude, you're being ridiculous.
You think this is a slam dunk, staple in Standard?
I think this card is going to be played a lot more than Welkin Turn.
I agree.
Dude, I think this card's good. I think there's a lot of good white 3-drops, but I think this card's good. I think that you might be underestimating how good look at their hand and then take the card of your choice and increase its cost by 2 is. Like, okay, here's a thought. What about Thoughtseize? But instead of you losing 2 life, your opponent can eventually pay 2 extra to get a buyout.
Wait, I have to think about this for a second. Not interested.
You're out of your mind.
You would rather have that card than Thoughtseize?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that you're out of your mind and not be interested. I would take the meeting.
I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me, I get Thoughtseize as it is, or I get this delayed Thoughtseize?
Yeah, but I'm saying that, like, at least they're comparable, right? You think it's just not close?
I could totally see playing that card sometimes. Yes. I think that it's... But, like, it's going to be in a completely different situation. Like, Thoughtseize is good basically in decks that can cast Thoughtseize, right? The card that you're talking about is only good in decks that can attack for the most part, or decks that will win very quickly afterwards. Right?
Okay,
so Thoughtseize is good in creature decks, it's good in combo decks, it's good in control decks, it's good all different kinds of situations. It's good if you kill them now, it's good to ensure that you kill them now, it's good if you're going to play another 10 turns. The card that you just described is just like, literally has no text in the mid-game.
Okay, how good is 0 mana? Look at your opponent's hand, choose a card, they exile it, and they can't play it unless they pay 2 extra the turn they play it.
That's awesome, but 0 is way different than non-0.
0 is because it's a card, man. This is a 3-1 flyer that draws a card, and that card is a 0 mana, look at their hand and suppress something for unless they pay 2 to get it out of lockdown.
I think this card is a 1 under the gentleman's rules. I would never have said it wasn't a 1. I just said I wasn't into it.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. You know how you have all those fantasies about someday playing one of those white decks that has like Leonin Arbiter and all that?
Yeah, but I just moved past those fantasies pretty quickly, yeah. But
yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
I know, but you'll be there again. You know it. You know. You come back around every couple months, and you want to be that again, right?
Yeah, but because a Leonin Arbiter and a Ghost Quarter in the same deck is really good, especially against people who only have like 3 basics in their deck. It's awesome.
Oh my
it feels
God.
fantastic.
Let me guess, because you're suppressing their mana?
Yeah, and they don't get... They're so messed up.
I wonder how much pleasure you might derive from suppressing somebody because of their mana. All right, let's talk again when somebody kills it in one of the tournaments and you just decide that you're singing a new tune on this card.
I've been wrong before. I was wrong on Seagate Restoration.
I don't think this card's busted. I just think it's good.
I just said I'm not into. There's a lot of cards that are good that I'm just not into them.
And I'm saying you're going to be into it when you get some sense. I think you'll be into it eventually because you're not going to be able to help yourself. Somebody's going to show up with a pretty little white creature deck that's going to speak to you because it's so fancy and so clever, and then you're going to be in.
Well, fancy and clever are two of my favorite qualities in a deck.
Yeah.
I certainly like those better than win expectation.
So what's the actual Golgari card that speaks to you the most?
So
that we haven't already covered yet, you know.
I actually wouldn't mind talking about Beladros Witherbloom. Like I said, I wanted to like any of the Dragon Lords, right? Like, so I'm like, this one is like very close, I think, to really powerful cards of the past. Like multiple different really powerful cards of the past. And yet, it's some packages still I'm not super into it. Like, so...
Of course. So why... This isn't the best card, though.
Not the best card. I don't know. It has a lot of Verdant Force to it, except it has evasion. One of the things that Verdant Force had against it
is much smaller.
You could just brick wall it with anything. And then this has this other ability, pay 10 life, hopefully win the game. That's a big, big thing to be paying.
Dude, all you do is untap all your land.
I mean, presumably it was like 7 or more land, though. You don't think that's pretty good? That's enough for your 14?
Yeah.
It's like literally enough to 14 them to death.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this card's fine. That's what it's, I guess. Like, it's going to be for that purpose. But we're talking about a bunch of those, like, 1%ers, you know? Like, a bunch of, like, real niche. Like, that, 2-mana draw to a selection is unreal. This card is, like, going to be sweet when it's playable sometimes, you know?
I mean, there are a lot of just Golgari-ish cards that I think are worth thinking about, right? That I'm like, all right, this card has some legs, right? Like,
but don't you actually actively like Harness Infinity?
I don't like it very much.
Really?
Yeah.
So this is that 1 black, green instant. Exchange your hand in graveyard and then exile Harness Infinity.
So like.
You like a 50-50, but you don't like draw a million.
I mean, you have to have the stocked graveyard first.
Dude, this is like a Yawgmoth's Will at instant speed, but you can keep whatever you don't spend.
Yes, so... I mean, I don't know. How many of these you want to play? 1 or 4?
1 is enough.
1? Okay.
No, just the 1. 1 is enough.
I could probably get behind that. I guess, like, what do you think is more likely to end the game successfully? This or a Casualties of War? This, right?
Yeah.
Casualties of War ended a lot of games. So.
Yeah. But this is, like, even more, and it's an instant, man.
Yeah, I guess, like, the ability
It's also good in an attrition war like you would not believe.
Yeah, this is, like, the best last card to play, right?
It's pretty good.
Yeah, okay. You got me. That's good.
You're only medium on this card, man.
I mean, I just have, like, this whole thing in my head, which is, like, here are cards that I think... So, there's, like... I'm just like you. Things are 0s or 1s, right? That's different from, like, what the emotional scale that I have on a card is. Like, oh, I really like this one, or, like, I'm not that into one. But, like, they're mostly 0s or 1s. But I have a category of things that cost more than 4, and then I have a different category of things that cost more than 6. Right, so, like, I really like things that cost 1. I'm, like, pretty much like things that cost 2. And then 3 I don't like for the most part. 4 I want to win, right? 6
What?
4 I want to win already. Like, Torbrand is a 4. Right?
This is a weird scale. Don't you care about how much you get from it? You just like 1s, regardless of how much you get.
I really like 1s, yeah.
Okay.
I like, here's some examples of cards I like. Lightning Bolt, Noble Hierarch, Swords to Plowshares. I don't
Healing
know.
Salve.
No, come on. I don't like that one.
Dude, it's
Monastery Swift Spear. I really don't like 3s. Oko, for example. Don't like it at all.
Okay, dude. What about Vanishing Verse? This is a 2. White-black instant, exile target monocolor permanent.
It seems really good. Like
Why would this not be really good?
very, very good. Like I don't know how else to put this, right? Like that card
Cross format
is
staple.
just it's like you know how people are like
Exile even.
terror
Exile.
would be good, but and then they make like other Doom Blades that are like would be good, but like this is just the same as that, but also exile, and it's not just creatures.
So it's kind of, ultimate price, but you can ultimate price their Oath of Ghouls, and it's exiling everything regardless. Or Oath of Druids, God. You can exile their Oath of Druids.
You can exile their Jace. I mean, like they have like an ultimate, soon to be ultimate Nissa. Just exile it.
Yeah,
I think this card is like really good. If we were doing a non-binary scale, I would rate this card like at least an A minus, if not an A. But you can't play too much of it in the main deck. You might want to supplement it a little bit. I think this card's a little bit of... maybe you know more about the format that you're about to play in the real world than I'm just theory crafting right now. But I feel like you could have too much of it in your main deck. Like I'm more of like a 2 of this card to start. Are you a 4?
Oh, I don't know. It depends. I think you got to make sure you have a good variety of removal. And this, like a lot of the other removal, is that kind of a thing, you know? Like, you want to have a variety. There's so many good multicolor creatures.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, you don't want to get caught with a, inability to get them.
Yeah. I think it could be pretty good in small numbers. What do you think of Killian Ink Duelist? Dude, this guy does a lot for 2 mana. This is that white-black legendary human warlock, 2/2 lifelink menace. Spells you cast that target a creature, anybody's creature. A creature costs 2 less to cast.
So, yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head even with your vocal inflections. This card does a ton, right? So, 2/2 lifelink for 2. I'm actually already...
That's not like a non-starter.
I'm already like, okay, 2/2 lifelink for
Go
2.
on.
It's not a no. I'll tell you that right now. Like, keep going. Lifelink and menace. I'm like, so, this guy's got a pretty decent chance of living through its first combat. I'm
human
into it.
That's a 2/2 lifelink menace? I'm already interested. I will take that meeting.
So you could like be casting expensive removals for cheap to ensure that his menace is going to work, or you can pants him up for cheap. Like, I don't know. I mean, if you're into attacking with mid-range creatures, you could do a lot worse than Killian Ink Duelist. I don't know. This card seems very serviceable to me.
Oh yeah. So here's some thoughts with this card. So first of all, this card's like really good with removal that has colorless mana in its cost, right?
Yes,
of course.
it is.
Right. But also, what do you think about pumping this guy up? What do you think about this guy with like hatred?
Yeah. So I like this guy with some sort of pants. Like,
but dude, no, hatred. Think about it.
Okay.
Dude, so first of all, it curves perfect. 2 into 3. Second of all, lifelink hatred, great on the back when you got to do a modest little value hatred. Or if you just hit him one time with Killian's, sometimes you just get that extra life so you can finish him.
I cast, in my long history of casting hatreds, Patrick, I think that I cast 2 value hatreds in my entire career, and I lost one of the games.
But dude, you cast more value hatreds if they just cost 3.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I haven't thought about... I mean, despite the fact that I played hatred every single chance that I got in every format that was legal for 3 years or something, I haven't even thought about hatred since around like 2001. I don't know. Do you think this card is... So that's legacy, right? Like, that's the only format that hatred is viable.
Insofar as that it's, viable.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's legal in Vintage, but people don't hatred in Vintage, right? And it's not legal in the other formats.
The fact that you can just play this guy on turn 4 and then immediately play a 4-cost spell, like a 4-cost kill spell or something with value, I don't know, man. I think this card seems sweet.
I think this card seems very good. You're not going to get that much of the benefit of the spells you cast that target a creature costs 2 less to cast on your removal spells, I think, because you're not just going to be casting like 3+ mana removal spells just because Killian works well with them. So maybe you'll get like one off.
Yeah, I mean, you play a little bit of that. It's a little incentive.
I mean, are you just going to like up the number of utter ends that you play with Killian just because he's cheap? I think that it's just part of the package, and that you're happy to have some sort of hatred or better pants for cheaper. I think, again, if you're into attacking with mid-range creatures, this one seems okay. Solid.
So what do you think of this guy with some white-black auras action?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, what's the one that's like Orzhov 1 +1/+1 flying lifelink? That's not nearly very good, actually. He already has lifelink, right? And he also has kind of a evasion ability. X that idea. Don't even answer.
Man, you know what's brutal? It's too bad this guy is a human. So you can still do some awesome stuff, but you're going to need some non-humans in your deck. If you have Killian, your mutate cards cost 2 less. You can't put them on Killian, but if you mutate somebody who's not a human, you can do it for 2 less. That's pretty sick, right?
But they're also not in color. Aren't the good mutates all green and blue?
The good mutates are all kinds of colors, man. It's just there wasn't enough to bring together the rainbow stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy is like Snapdrax. You know, we're finally gonna get see it in the sun. You know, see its day in the sun. And Vadrox and all sorts of just combinations of V's and Z's and X's.
It's funny, nobody plays mutation decks anymore. They were playing a lot of them, you know, a few months ago.
This card might bring it back. Bring it back.
I think the fact that you can't mutate him makes it unlikely, but maybe you're right.
It is admittedly a really big strike. That's true.
Like, what do you think about Mortality Spear? That one is a 2 black-green. For this spell costs 2 less to cast if you gained life this turn. Destroy target non-land permanent.
Yeah, seems really good.
Right? So, like, this one could be good if you gained life. This one could be good with Killian if you were an Abzan colors.
I think you got to be playing a reasonable amount of enablers, like lifelink creatures in particular. Because I think that just makes that takes this card from, like, fine to great.
So, like, are there still lands that you can play in Standard that are just, like, come into play tapped for a dual land, gain 1 life?
Yeah, but you shouldn't. Unless you're going to play, like, a dedicated Golgari, you know, a deck that, you know, like it, when you gain life, you force some advantage onto the battlefield, like Valentine, Dean of the Vein.
So one of the cards I thought was interesting in that color combination was Dina, the Soul Steeper. So that's
sure.
BG for a 1/3. As you know, I'm into 2 casting cost 1/3s defensively.
Yes, you are.
But Dina also has the ability, whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So it could be good with that removal card. It could be good with a land that can gain life when it comes into play. And Dina has an additional ability, which is 1 sacrifice another creature. Dina Soul Steeper gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. I'm like not even that into that ability. I'm very into just like passively gaining a little life and kind of chip-shotting my opponent, maybe discounting my, you know, value utter end here. I thought you'd like Mortality because it's very utter endish, but instead of costing life, it just gets cheaper.
Yeah, it's good.
You have Dina? I think Dina's okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, Dina is like going to be unreal for whatever life gain aggro deck exists. But setting that aside, dude, this card with Exquisite Blood, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So, like, you know, if they lose any life or you gain any life, they're dead.
So, like, just gain 1 life, then Dina triggers, they lose 1 life, which triggers Exquisite Blood, meaning that, they lost 1 life, so you gain 1 life, which loops back to Dina. So any exchange of life, any at all, that's just it.
Yeah, I mean, you could already do this with Thorn, but like Thorn has already proven himself a player, and that was at 3 mana. This is at 2 mana.
Maybe you just play them both.
Dude, this is like the Golgari Splinter Twin.
You had me at Splinter Twin.
Like, this is a Splinter Twin, man.
I mean, but it's kind of a 3 card, right? It doesn't just do it in 2.
Well, sort of. I mean, if the life total changes,
Like, you need to have anything else, right?
Sort of. You could just attack. Like Dina just attacks. You can just attack.
Yeah, but you need to actually have the life's change, right? Like, if they block, that won't do anything, right? If Dina dies.
Yeah. I mean, that is true.
I think it's more likely that you just have the Exquisite Blood in play Dina, and then play one of the lands that gains a life immediately. That's how you do it. That's what I think.
I don't know. I just want to attack with some, like a, 1/1 Menace Lifesteal or a 2/2 Menace Lifesteal. Dude, I think the 1/1 Menace Lifesteal is going to be great with this card.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, I think that, like the Witherblooms, I think they've got a lot of stuff. They seem very low to the ground to me, and that's usually recipe for some tournament viability. So, who do you like the best? What who's got your heart at this stage of not having played these cards yet?
Well, I don't know about has my heart. I can tell you my head goes to 2 mana, draw 2 with selection. But if we're going to talk about my heart, that's a good question. Man, I think about Siege Rhino a lot. Yeah. I think Siege Rhino still has my heart.
Why don't you maybe pick a card that is in the set?
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. What's yours? Tell you what. What's yours? This way I can kind of.
I mean, it's Body of Research, not even close.
Really?
That's the card of my heart. Yeah, I think. First of all, I really respect a 40/40 for 6. Like, one of the reasons I like this card so much is because it answers a question that we didn't even know we wanted the answer to, which is how big does some random vanilla have to be for you to want to play it at call it 6 mana. And the fact that you don't even want to play it a 45/45 or whatever says a lot, right?
No, sort of. It said a lot 10 years ago. We already thought about this. I don't know. I guess. Sure.
Yeah, but
that's a good question.
I think the blue-red, sorcery, draw 100 for 2 mana is, and by 100 I mean kind of 2, kind of 3. Is very good. So that's probably a better card than the card that I like.
Actually, here's one last card. What do you think about Mila, Crafty Companion, the 1 white legendary fox? It's a 2/3. Whenever an opponent attacks one or more planeswalkers you control, put a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. And whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. So that's the front side, that 2/3. The back side, Luca, is a 4 red. Planeswalker with 5 loyalty that has +1. You may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. If a creature card is discarded this way, draw 2 cards instead. Or -2, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of your next upkeep. And -7, you get an emblem with whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target.
So the Luca is kind of expensive, right? Like 6 casting costs for a 5 loyalty planeswalker. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the ultimate is it's like deceptively not powerful, right? Like that's like a pandemonium, right? But like you have to get there, and then you still have to do work. So I probably would not be into the Lucas side by itself. Like I not even as like my attrition-y card out of my sideboard. So I kind of think it was like, is there a total package thing which involves Mila Crafty Companion? So the front side is like a Herloon Minotaur with a lot of text. I think it's a pretty specialized card, right? Like the first ability, which is whenever an opponent attacks one or more planeswalkers you control, put a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. That's a really cool ability, but only when you are playing Mila with planeswalkers, and only when people are attacking planeswalkers, right? So
Agree.
it's kind of weird, right? Like either you don't have planeswalkers in play, or people can be dealing with them in other ways, or like trying to go over the top of them or whatever. And in which case, Mila's not doing very much. Although it's part of the sum total of what's going on in your deck. I respect that. And the second part is whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. That, on the other hand, I think is something which is very broadly good for white creature decks against decks with point removal. Right? Like, that is a very, very, very good ability to have over time. Except for, I think, in practice, what's likely to happen is they're going to kill Mila, you're going to draw one card, and it's not going to do very much after that.
Right.
So, I don't know. Sum total, I'm not super enthused about this card, but I think this card is probably most likely to be a card that people bring in white-based creature decks after sideboarding to get a little value. Yeah.
Oh, see, I think the only reason to I think if you're going to be in for this card, setting aside some sort of weird interaction, taking advantage of Milo being a legend, but I think for the most part, you want to be in for the -2 that Luca brings to the table.
Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of your next upkeep. So you want to use this card as like a 6 casting cost Shallow Grave?
Yeah, but you don't. It doesn't get exiled immediately. You could, in theory, block with it, and in fact, you could use it an extra time. It doesn't even get exiled until the beginning of your next upkeep. No, you only get one swing.
No, I mean like it's -2, and Luca has 5 starting loyalty. That's
yeah, you can use its ability twice, but you can also use the. For instance, if the creature had a tap ability, you could use it on your. You could use it when you play it, and then use it again on your upkeep before it dies. But there's a lot of shenanigans you can do, because you can also it's not going to die until you've untapped, and then you have your mana, and you can do something that stops the trigger. But really, you just get 2 Shallow Graves, man. You just get to play a Shallow Grave, and you just still have Luca.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, like I guess this is it's also obvious to say it's in red-white, right? Like, so
yeah.
Red-white has Thrilling Discovery, which would allow you to put Velomachus Lorehold into your graveyard. Right, this card is cheaper.
Luca has its own ability
than Velomachus. Yeah, so like I guess for 6, if you no, I'm just saying like I want Velomachus Lorehold in the graveyard when I cast Luca. So you cast it, and then you just immediately Shallow Grave Velomachus Lorehold, crush with that, deal 5, cast a powerful spell. Because I'm in it for a powerful spell at this point. And then you get another swing. Maybe you just get another Thrilling Discovery setup. Yeah. It seems like a roundy-bowdy way to do it, but that's a powerful set of things. And all those cards, actually, that I mentioned anyway, have text by themselves. You don't need to play them in sequence. They're all fine. And then maybe you just play it as the fox on the front end in some games because you drew 2 copies and you just want to get your rumble on.
Yeah. Or sometimes you'll just effectively blink the fox with that blue blink that lets you recast the spell, and then when you recast it, you'll recast it as Luca.
And rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Lukas only ever get played for abusive things. They don't ever get played for regular
That's
stuff.
That's part of Luka's jam.
It's funny because Luka has so many abilities, but people only ever want to do the Agent of Treachery thing with Luka. That's his only goal. All right, I think you convinced me. 6 mana is a lot, though. Still,
It's a lot. It is a lot.
It's so much.
Oh yeah.
But if you're getting Velomachus Lorehold with haste, I mean that's easily 10 mana worth of value, right? Right, like it's like 5 damage, draw a card, 2 Black Lotuses kind of thing. Like that's very attractive to me. Like you remember you were like Velomachus Lorehold is going to be played in some sort of weird slow red-white Planeswalker board control deck, and I was very, very apprehensive. Maybe you're right, because one of those Planeswalkers hadn't been revealed yet, and it was Luka.
I don't know, man. I don't know that I want to put these two together.
You're dialing it back. All right.
Maybe. I like Velomachus. I just,
All right. Well,
I don't know. This one's a little foxy.
Put me down for body of research.
All right, and I'm gonna just trot you. I'll see you next week.
In life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, it's a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind.